Hey everyone, welcome back to our channel. If you're new here, please subscribe. I'd really love that. If you're returning, how you doing? We have a few things to discuss today, okay? This first thing is, there's this woman, and she has been documenting different brands of bread, okay? Whether it's Wonder Bread or, Sunbeam bread, whatever bread, okay? And she's picking them up from the grocery stores. And she said some of the bread that she has is over 4 months old. But the thing is that none of these breads have mold on them. It all looks perfect as if the day she bought it. And she even knows the dates on the packaging. It seems as if we are being fed fake food that is full of chemicals. Watch.
3 different companies, all expired bread. None of them have mold. We'll start with this one, August the 2nd, 2024. It literally was never used. Has the in piece. None of it is molded. Still soft. The Sunbeam is October the 2nd, 2024. Some of it had been used. We'll take some out from the middle. None of it is molded. Still soft. Sara Lee is October the 15th. Some of it was used. Now this is the honey wheat. Still soft. None molded. This is disgusting.
So this video was sent to me by a community member. She said, I just learned about this. It's really scary. Did you know about this? No, I didn't. And it's very, very interesting, to say the least. You have to watch it and pay attention to it, because if you've ever watched the movies, The Hunger Games, you'll understand what it means.
So you're telling me that the Hunger Games District 12 was set in the rural areas around Asheville, North Carolina. You're telling me that the district exploited by District 1 for their coal was filmed in Asheville in Western North Carolina. Do you know what that reminds me of? That reminds me of the recent film White Noise, about an airborne toxic event caused by a train crash that was filmed in this town in Ohio. And then literally months later, the exact same event took place in that town. Disclosure is interwoven into all the great works of fiction, both in television.
Now this next video, bookmark it, okay? Keep it, remember it. Watch it over and over again and memorize it. Learn it, understand it, grasp it, believe it, and never forget it, okay? Because this is the truth. The truth that is being kept from all of us. MSM never want you to know the truth, but this is something that we all know, and we've been knowing this for a long time. They want war. They want perishment. They want nothing but doom, gloom, and the worst of the worst.
This is not an attack by Putin on Ukraine in the way that we are told every day. This started in 1990, February 9th, 1990. James Baker III, our Secretary of State, said to Mikhail Gorbachev, NATO will not move 1 inch eastward if you agree to German unification, basically ending World War II. And Gorbachev said, that's very important. Yes, NATO doesn't move, and we agreed to German unification. The U.S. then cheated on this, already starting in 1994, when Clinton signed off on basically a plan to expand NATO all the way to Ukraine. This is when the so-called neocons took power. And Clinton was the first agent of this. And the expansion of NATO started in 1999 with Poland, Hungary, and Czech Republic. At that point, Russia didn't much care. There was no border other than with the Königsberg, but other than that, there was no direct threat. Then the U.S. led the bombing of Serbia in 1999. That was bad, by the way, because that was a use of NATO to bomb a European capital, Belgrade, 78 straight days to break the country apart. The Russians didn't like that very much. But Putin became president, they swallowed it, they complained, but even Putin started out pro-European, pro-American, actually. He asked maybe we should join NATO when there was still the idea of some kind of mutually respectful relationship. Then 9/11 came, then came Afghanistan, and the Russians said, yeah, we'll support you, we understand, to root out terror. But then came two other decisive actions. In 2002, the United States unilaterally walked out of the anti-ballistic missile treaty. This was probably the most decisive event, never discussed in this context. But what it did was trigger the U.S. putting in missile systems in Eastern Europe that Russia views as a dire, direct threat. In 2004-05, we engaged in a soft regime change operation in Ukraine. But in 2009, Yanukovych won the election and he became president, and in 2010 on the basis of neutrality for Ukraine. That calmed things down because the U.S. was pushing NATO, but the people of Ukraine on the opinion polls didn't even want to be in NATO. They knew that the country is divided between ethnic Ukrainian, ethnic Russian. What do we want with this? We want to stay away from your problems. So in February 22nd, 2014, the United States participated actively in the overthrow of Yanukovych. A typical U.S. regime change operation, have no doubt about it. And the Russians did us a favor. They intercepted a really ugly call between Victoria Nuland, my colleague at Columbia University now, between her and the U.S. ambassador to Ukraine, Jeffrey Piat, who's a senior State Department official till today. And they talked about regime change. They said, who's going to be the next government? All of this is to say, the U.S. then said, okay, now NATO's really going to enlarge. And Putin kept saying, stop. You promised no NATO enlargement. It's been, by the way, I forgot to mention, in 2004, Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, Bulgaria, Romania, Slovakia, Slovenia, 7 more countries in the not 1 inch eastward. And then, okay, it's a long story, but the U.S. kept rejecting the basic idea, don't expand NATO to Russia's border in a context where we're putting in goddamn missile systems after breaking a treaty. 2019, we walked out of the Intermediate Nuclear Force Treaty. On December 15, 2021, Putin put on the table a draft Russia-U.S. security agreement. You can find it online. The basis of it is no NATO enlargement. I called the White House that next week after that, begging them, take the negotiations. Putin's offered something, avoid this war. Oh, Jeff, there's not going to be a war. Announce that NATO's not going to enlarge. Oh, don't worry, NATO's not going to enlarge. I said, oh, you're going to have a war over something that's not going to happen? Why don't you announce it? And he said, no, our policy is an open door. This is Jake Sullivan. Our policy is an open door policy. Open door for NATO enlargement. That is under the category of bullshit, by the way. You don't have your right to put your military bases anywhere you want and expect peace in this world. They turned down the negotiations. Then the special military operation started. And 5 days later, Zelensky says, okay, neutrality. And then the United States and Britain said, no way. You guys fight on. We got your back. We don't have your front. You're all going to die. But we got your back as we kept pushing them into the front lines. That's 600,000 deaths now of Ukrainians since Boris Johnson flew to Kyiv to tell them to be brave.
Now, you all know who George Carlin is, right? He's that comedian. He's passed now, but in this video, he says that illusion is a choice. Take a listen to what he has to say.
There is no national conspiracy to buy elections and control America.
You don't need a formal conspiracy.
Right.
When interests converge, these people went to the same universities and fraternities, they're on the same boards of directors, they're in the same country clubs, they have like interests, they don't need to call a meeting, they know what's good for them, and they're getting it. And there used to be 7 oil companies, there are now 3, it will soon be 2. The things that matter in this country have been reduced in choice. There are 2 political parties, there are a handful of insurance companies, there are about 6 or 7 information things, but if you want a bagel, there are 23 flavors because you have the illusion. You have the illusion of choice.